Hi, welcome to part 4.2 of this Living in the Now series. We heard from many of you um, that the last video that we did, although it was long, that many found it very helpful, and many the running theme that I heard was that you were doing things while you were listening to this hour and a half. If you haven't listened to that, I do recommend going back. There are some real gems in there, and I think also it was an opportunity for us to really dive into what happens when we live in the now, we live in presence, and we want to also have some purpose or some intention to our lives. There can be this notion of we can meander through life, and that's totally okay too, or that there can be a container or a direction in which we want to co-create a kind of life with a certain kind of flavor. The theme that we really wanted to hone in was this concept of miracles. So before we sort of get started, I want to introduce and say hello to Marieken. I'm hoping you're there and that you can hear me.
Hi, Asha. Yes. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, so we're really going to keep this to the container of a certain time. As you can imagine, this is a topic that we could just like keep talking about, and in trying to really encapsulate that what presence is, or what creating miracles is. Um, it's something that you can definitely expand on and keep growing and learning from a conversation like this. But we're going to try to keep this very succinct so that you walk away from this conversation really having a good idea, or a good starting point of what does it mean to create miracles in your life with in this place of being really connected. So I thought where we would start would be, Marieken, to chat a little bit about, well, what is a miracle? Because a miracle can be either something that you maybe receive, maybe you have these concepts of receiving it from a higher force, God or the universe, or it can be, maybe there's a co-creative process to it. So I wanted to get your feedback on that.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that a little this morning. Like, what is a miracle? Because I had some unpleasant things happen this morning, and I recognized that to me a miracle is really a paradigm. Like when you um, it's recognizing that everything is a miracle, and that we are constantly already manifesting things in our life. Many people want to know how to manifest and how to manifest miracles in particular. Well, look around. You are already manifesting miracles, or miracles are already manifesting in your life. Um, and it is about how you see things that manifest in your life more than what is being manifested in your life. And I think what people want to do is they want to learn how to manifest miracles more consciously, because most miracles are being manifested unconsciously. Um, So for me, it's a paradigm. It's a difference. It's looking at the world in terms of uh, how can I see what's occurring in my life as a miracle, and the reason to do that is because it will enhance your life and it will make you happy. If you want, I can give an example. This
Sure.
morning, I actually for the second time this week, I got a call from the fraud alert people that my credit card, in this case my debit card, had been compromised for a number of thousands of dollars, which is not a pleasant thing to see. So you have a choice in that moment. Of course, the first thing is, oh no, and so a negative emotion might show up, fear or concern or worry or something. And to me, that is a moment of, okay, time to pay attention. And to turn this message into a miracle, all I have to do is see it differently. Not allowing it to spiral me down into a negative emotional state, but seeing, hey, what message is in here for me? You know, how can I respond to this with gratitude? And it's not something that I like artificially create. It's just become a habit because I see and I recognize that everything that happens is a miracle. Everything that happens, and I can respond to it in a way that keeps me feeling upbeat, happy, and alive inside, by all the the things we learned in the previous videos, such as how to respond to when a negative emotion shows up and what does a negative emotion signify. So when you are recognizing that your negative emotions won't stick around, they just show you, oh, something is wrong, and then how do I turn it around so it's right? So for me, that is, I think, really the essence of miracle, is that you can see a miracle even in things that your conscious mind tells you, this is wrong, I don't want this. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
The phrase that comes to mind is that life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you.
Yes.
And just that word allows us a different perspective of, oh, these are all gifts that I'm receiving.
Yes.
And if I have that attitude about everything that's unfolding in my life, then of course it's a completely different response, right?
Yes.
Then versus woe is me versus, oh, this is happening for me. Then it invites that place of being in the now, because you're invited into curiosity of what is in it for me here.
Yeah, and you notice what's good about the situation. For example, I got to speak to a woman from some fraud alert system. God knows where she sits, but we had a nice conversation and we wished each other a happy day. And you know what? There's all sorts of things that come that are also equally true. So yes, somebody used my debit card and tried to spend it in Best Buy and all sorts of places for thousands of dollars. Now, but the beautiful thing is I got called and somebody said, hey, did you make these purchases? I said, no, I didn't. And somebody, showed care, and we had a conversation, we had a connection. And, the card was canceled. So I had to, yes, it's an inconvenience. But what also needed to happen is I needed to call my bank and I needed to talk to another human being there. And we had an interaction. We had a connection. And, as long as we kind of can respond from that deeper level of trust and faith, and this is a miracle in unfoldment attitude, all these relationships, all these interactions become very pleasant and very warm, and actually create more and more of a high vibration or a blissful, loving, kind feeling space inside of me. So actually, overall, even though I can still say from the conscious mind, I wish this didn't happen, there were several interactions today that came because of this that were very nice. I also decided to, I found out the source of where my card was compromised. So I warned people who I knew had bought on the same website. Again, I connected to a number of people and received gratitude from them. I decided to make a status on Facebook where I said, hey, look, this is what happens when we live in this compromised money system. Here are some resources. Contemplate, read this book, sign this petition. So it's instigated another form of activity that I feel moves me towards the type of world I would like to live in. So I'm creating miracles as this miracle is unfolding.
I'll go back because I think that this is a topic that you are passionate about, is having an alternate, wealth system, right? Mm-hmm. It's something that you care about. So there is this, maybe, again, I'm trying to look for like ways of how do we sort of direct, how do we become co-creators of our lives rather than like having this sense of like, well, life is happening, and I just get tossed around or whatever. But there is this deep intention within you of how do I create a different wealth system.
Yes.
So if that is your overriding intention, then there would be opportunities that would make you connect. And connection is important to you, right?
Yeah.
Connecting with people. And so here's this chance to connect, to educate others on potential differences of how we could be doing things. So I think like that's a beautiful example of how, okay, here's Marieken creating this intention to live in a different wealth system, and opportunities that are coming to you to really play in that platform.
Yes, yes, yes. And also, I think what's important to note for, the how-to aspect of this is that you first have to touch and address and connect with the negative feeling that shows up when your conscious mind says, hey, this is supposed to happen. Because if you override it, if you don't touch it and connect to it and say, acknowledge it and put some loving kindness there, really nurture that part of yourself that is triggered in that moment, then you're kind of pushing it back down under, and it will still keep stirring up from below, and it will color all the next steps. So the first step is still, I want to emphasize that, is that healing piece needs to happen. It's just that when you get good at this, and when your belief system really becomes that everything happens for you, you're already creating miracles. And even though you may not recognize it as a miracle as it shows up, there's a deep belief, a deep knowing that it is a miracle. Before that paradigm really sets in, you need to make sure that when the negative emotion comes, that it needs to be acknowledged, it needs to be healed first before you move forward towards the next step, or it will color the next step. And you might find yourself being irritated when you're talking to these people or all these things, because you haven't actually experienced and integrated the irritation first.
Yeah, and I find that most people by now, most people maybe by the time they're 30 at least, they've probably already lived all their life lessons, right? And things just are really repeating themselves bigger and bolder. And so, I had this opportunity to speak to somebody, and they said something to the effect of, I'm getting, I have these triggers, and I'm getting really good at kind of managing it. And of course, he has one of those children that I call spirited children who's going to bring it up. And the kid's only 4. So I know that he's going to be triggered in a bigger way.
Yes.
I have spirited children myself, so I know what that life is like. And what I'm hearing you say is that there's 2 pieces to it. It's the piece of, let's not stuff down those triggers, because they're just going to get bigger and more bold. Life is going to present opportunities that are going to make you really pay attention to what's coming up, right?
Yes, yes.
And the other piece that I'm also, that I also want to make sure that is a part of this, is that intention, that heart-centered intention of what is really your purpose, right?
Yes.
If your purpose is to connect, and your purpose is to explore different wealth or monetary systems, and if your purpose is to help people, and you really connect, and those are your overriding intentions, and kind of like that's what flavors and colors your life, and that in conjunction with dealing with or bringing into wholeness, or whatever you want to call it, integrating these triggers or these sensations that rise, is that's the path.
Yes, yes, yes. And then how can I see this event as a miracle, and how can I respond to it so that I enhance my life, and so I enhance my inner state, and I enhance the lives of the people I interact with in dealing with the situation.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a wrap.
That's creating miracles right there, because you're actually recognizing it already is a miracle.
And one of the things I have people do in my program is create So they create this ideal life document.
Mm-hmm.
And this ideal life document is not so, it's almost like it's a discovery, because it's a discovery of making a distinction between what we think we should want and what we actually desire from that heart space.
Yes.
And part of it's like we almost have to, well, deconstruct what is the should, or what we think is the right picture, the perfect picture for us, and then really build what is the heart-centered, purposeful, miracle creating life that I really want to have.
Yes. Yeah, I like that, because the old way of doing it, or the more linear masculine way of is this setting a goal and then working towards a goal. And what you're describing, I forget how you called it, but in another book that's called The Painted Picture, I think, where you paint a picture, of all aspects of your life, and how your life is going. And that kind of integrates a lot of parts, because maybe you've been taught that you should earn a certain amount of money, for example. I have a friend who has a very strong belief that she should be this and that successful, and if she isn't, then she feels bad. But is that truly something that comes from her heart, and something that is from her? Is that something she was taught, or an expectation that was put upon her by her parents? And I think when you explore a painted picture, when you really describe your whole life as you'd like it to be, those kinds of false desires can come to the surface. You can start recognizing, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't really fit in the whole picture. This doesn't really fit in what I truly want in my life. And when that happens, you recognize, well, this is probably something I was taught. It was not something that came from my soul. So I think that's a really important thing to begin to discern which desires are truly my desires, which desires truly resonate with my deeper being, with my heart sense, with my soul, and which desires were we taught to desire. Which desires were added to us by our culture, by our family, by expectations from teachers, and so forth. So if you follow those, you're not going to be creating a lot of deep contentment and happiness in your life, because they may be leading you away from what you truly desire.
Yeah.
So it's important to discern, where did these desires come from, and one way to do that is to have a full painted picture of how you would love your life to flow.
Yeah, what's coming up too is my Sufi teacher John Wyrick talks about hungry soul, free soul, and naked soul, and I find these like really defined markers to sort of pinpoint what is my intention in this desire, or what is this pattern that, say I'm looking at something in my life, or I'm looking at a certain pattern in my life, and to really hone in where my intention's coming from. These are great markers for me. So like a hungry soul would be sort of that rescue mode of I'm really feeling like I'm hungry for safety, therefore I want to make a certain amount of money. So that's hungry
Right.
soul.
Yes.
Free soul might be like, all right, I have these goals. My work is a transaction. I do what I do, and then I get then I get some kind of retribution for it. We shake hands, things are over. Kind of like pretty, define, not trying to get something from somebody, but pretty black and white, right? And then naked soul is that place of my cup runneth over, and in that place of feeling so full with life, and feeling so in purpose and connection to who I am, and what and how I'm here to be. I give from that place, and I receive from that place.
Yes, and you're willing to be vulnerable and naked. Yes.
Exactly. So
Yes.
so when I find that those three really help. If you're watching this and you're trying to figure out, well, what this desire that I want or that I think I want, where is it coming from? Is it
Yes.
coming from this hungry soul place? Is it coming from free soul place? Or is it a really this naked soul place of being fully here, giving and receiving and being real, right?
Yes, yes. And I think one way you can tell the difference is the simplicity of the language that shows up in your head. Or, when naked soul, or what I would call heart space,
Mm-hmm.
speaks in very simple language. It says, I resonate, I don't resonate. I love this, I don't love this. I'm excited, I'm not excited.
Yeah.
And if you get language that starts talking about should, or because, or some, reasons, and lots of words, it's coming from a hungry place. It's coming from the mind space. It's coming from the egoic, say, I need to stay safe, I need to stay protected space. And so often when we follow our heart's desire, the other one gets triggered, because the purpose of our ego and our mind is to keep us safe and to keep us alive. Is its biological purpose. It's supposed to keep us safe. But our heart, our soul, is here to expand, to express, to explore, to grow. So it's an opposite direction. So one way you can tell that you're following your heart is that your ego is going to start pulling on the brakes. It's going to give you messages of, oh, this is dangerous, don't go here. You're being vulnerable, I don't like this. So when you start recognizing that, then you can actually start appreciating these messages from your ego, because they're telling you that you're going in the direction of your naked soul, or your vulnerable place of your heart space, your true desires. And then you can go, oh, good. My ego is pulling the brakes. It means I'm going in the right direction, instead of letting it stop you.
Mm-hmm.
So that is also very helpful in creating miracles, is to reinterpret the hungry soul messages as something that is actually encouraging you to follow your, what you call, the naked soul.
And the things that I would recommend, so I know that that's a really challenging, literally, like it really much challenges people's system, right? So if you're watching this, there's probably this part of you that's thinking, literally thinking, well, what do you mean? Like, my mind is what is what um, is is doing all of this. I'm able to sustain myself. I went to school. I think things through. I have planned things out. And so having this different position of the mind can be very challenging to our system.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the things that I would recommend people do, and I'd love to hear from you, Marieken, what you recommend people do to kind of stay in that place, but to remember that it is about energy, and
Yes.
it is about your energy and how present you are in your energy.
Yes.
It is about movement. It is about creativity. So the more that you can be in a creative space, the more that part of you just can come out, and like brilliant ideas come up, and then that's how you can use your mind. Is like, oh, I just had this brilliant idea. How can I give it form? That's the
Yes, that's the right use of mind. Yes.
that's the right use of the mind. Is like, oh, the system has come up with this like amazing creative idea that I couldn't have really thought of, right? When things are born from this place that you don't know where it comes from, that's you being in creativity, and then utilizing the mind to put structure to it, to put a direction to it. And then the other piece that you mentioned, which I think is really important, is your words, the
Mm-hmm.
words that you use. And you were saying as pay attention to the words that you say, so that it gives you an indication of where it's coming from. And I would invite you to even go into, well, could my words actually invite me into that heart space, into that naked soul? So if I start using, words that are more in alignment with naked soul or heart space, do I then invite myself to go more in this in this direction? And I would definitely say yes.
Yeah, I agree. And part of that journey is recognizing which words belong where, so you can start using them purposely. So first you recognize, oh, I'm having all this rationalization. This is not coming from heart space. So what is coming from heart space? And then yes, you can get in the habit of following heart space language and purposely using heart space language.
So what would you recommend for people to play more in that heart space, whether it's language wise or just in general? Like what would be your invitation to people feeling like, oh, I hadn't thought of it this way? What?
Sorry.
That's okay. Life happens.
Yes. You forget to turn off your phone.
So Marieken, what do you recommend for people wanting to be more in that creative space?
Well, I think the most important for me has been presence and really bringing presence, bringing awareness into the body, so that because the heart space is the body space, and so if we're busy and only being in the head space, we lose touch with the heart. So I think really ground, and in order to stay in the heart, we need to be grounded. So we need to be in the whole body. We can't just stop at the heart. So practicing being in presence, on a daily basis, which is one of the reasons I have these daily meditations I offer by conference call. It gives me and the people that show up the opportunity to start their day grounded in presence. I think that's really important. Just to start your day, to end your day, and to as many times as you can during a day, just check in. Am I present in my body right now? Am I connected to the whole, rather than just in the conceptual world of the mind, which is where we often get drawn when we're talking, when we're doing, and when we're busy in the world. So I think that's really important, so that we can actually discern things and we can actually feel things, because the heart is a feeling space. It perceives differently. And the other thing is to begin to recognize what is already present in our life. Because we all already are, things are manifesting in our life, whether you like them or not, they are manifesting in our life. And what we often do is, and that is again the safety mechanism, and that's the role of the ego mind. It's not a bad thing, it's trying to keep us safe. If we are driving down the road and see a pothole, it's good to avoid the pothole, and that's the mind and the ego is always. They're always looking at what can go wrong, what can go wrong, what can go wrong, because it wants to keep you safe. But if we're not in touch with the heart space, we forget to also have our feelers out for what's going right, what's going right, what's going right. Mm-hmm. So we want to, every time when you see that something that is going wrong, let that remind you to look for, well, what else is going on, and also how else can I interpret it, because what we often nowadays see things as wrong that aren't really life-threatening, so they're really not biologically necessary to pay attention to, because they're not going to kill us. So, for example, what happened to me this morning could be perceived as a threat, and the system literally can perceive it as a threat to life. So it's good to discern and actually see, is this a threat to my life? No, it's not. It's just some numbers on a screen and a computer somewhere. And yes, it has some effect, but it can be dissolved. So okay, I can let it go. It's not a problem. It's being taken care of. It's a minor inconvenience. How much energy do I want to react to this as if this is a threat to my life? So most of the issues that are happening to us that our ego mind perceives as a threat are no longer threats to our lives. It's not, like a wild animal is jumping at us and now we have to defend our life. So when we recognize that, we can choose in that moment to say, okay, this is not a threat to my life. Let's also take in all the things that are feeling right and that are good. So we can say, oh, I'm actually, I'm very healthy right now. There's a beautiful view. I'm feeling love for my children. There's so many things that we lose sight of if we focus in on just one thing. And especially if that's a threat that then takes over, right? It's triggered, and now everything is about that. So notice, oh no, my life is not in danger. Let's see what else is happening, what else I can take in. Open up your attention and notice what all the other things in your life. Notice all the things that are going correct. Some of the positive psychology people have said that we need to, I think it's a minimum of 4 to 1 acknowledge good things over bad ones, because the bad ones, because of the biological part, that we need to survive, we tend to pay 4 times to 10 times as much attention to. So every time we have a negative thing we notice, it is good to consciously look for 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 positive things in your life, so that you stay open and don't close down and only see the negative.
Yeah,
Because
really
that will
keeping it.
affect the energy of your life. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing you say is keeping things in perspective
Yes.
and noticing the things that are going right. Um, and I think we've said this before, is that miracles are already unfolding, and the more that we pay attention to it, the more that our energy is really drawn in that direction, right? The more that we're feeding, it's like a garden. The parts of the garden that we really pay attention to and really nurture and just give our energy to, those are the parts that are really going to flower, just like the different parts of our lives. And for those who think like that's a little hokey, and actually anytime that, as Marieken and I are talking, if anybody's thinking like, oh well, that's hard, or oh well, maybe it's easy for them, or oh well, oh that's hokey, or if any of that like that comes up, I mean, that's okay. It's totally fine if you're, doubting what we're saying, or being, having, bringing your critical mind to it. But just notice and be kind to the fact that it is your mind.
Yeah, and
It
this
is
is
your
that
mind.
this is the ego trying to keep you safe. It's doing its job, right? So, hey, are they putting one over me?
Right.
So it's good that when you see that, you go, okay, let me check, because the mind can never know that. It can only ask the question. Yeah, so the way to get the answer is to drop into your heart and say, do I resonate? Don't I resonate? Is there a yes here? Is there a no here?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's simple. So the mind is warning you, hey, be careful. Maybe these people are putting one over you. And then you can drop into your heart and say, are they or are they not? Am I resonating with this? Am I not resonating? And whether, even if we are not, if you're not resonating with it, then follow your heart. This is,
Right.
that's what the guidance I always teach people. If they tell me, should I go do this thing, that thing, I go, well, drop into your heart. How does it feel? Do you get excited? Is this resonating with you? If it is, go for it.
Yeah. And if
Unless the mind is giving you, saying, hey, wait a minute, that's dangerous. And if it truly is a threat to your life, or there's something, then pay attention. I'm not saying ignore the warnings of your mind, but many of the warnings of our mind are to keep us small and safe. And the ego is threatened by expansion and by following the heart, because it means it needs to change its definition of itself. Yeah, and it wants to, it wants to be solid. It wants to be real, which of course it isn't, but that's its dilemma.
yeah. Well, I feel that this is a great description of how to bring presence into every day and creating, um, and that we've given an honest summary of how to live in this space. Um, the invitation would be for people to take this to another level, right? Because
Yes.
you can crawl through, you can take baby steps, and reading books here, listening to these, these videos is very helpful, but having that constant invitation to take it to the next level. Both Marieken and I are in the business of literally of helping people drop into who they really are. And the invitation would be, if you feel a resonance to either of us, to reach out to us, to reach out, because we're here for you. This is why we do this. We do this to be in service to, to ourselves. I mean, I love these conversations. So, I definitely have a great time doing this, and I definitely enjoy what comes up in the dialogue. And when two people gather, the energy gets bigger, right?
Yes, well, that's huge. That is huge, and I think that's the mistake I've made in my life, and I don't know about you, Asha, but the mistake I've made in my life is I always had this thing that I had to do everything alone, and it made my path. I mean, I made it, but it made, and I didn't do it alone, obviously, but very much I didn't ask people for help. I didn't ask questions. I went through high school and college without ever raising my hand. You know what I mean? And I think it's such a in retrospect I learned from it. So in retrospect everything is perfect, but I would invite you, don't feel you need to do things alone. Gather around you, find a mentor or a mastermind group or just a support group with friends, a women's group, whatever. But have people who are on the same path as you and who are trying to reach similar, not necessarily that the external goals need to be the same, but that are in a similar process. To help and support each other. That's, we need community, and we need people that can hold us accountable and hold our hand and guide us on the path that they have already walked themselves to one degree or another, or are walking in this moment. When we walk together, life is much more fun.
It really is. I mean, isn't that what, I don't have the exact verse, but I know, like, Jesus says, gather in his name, and really what I interpret that is when you gather in the consciousness, in that Christ consciousness, in that consciousness of love, and that consciousness of connection, and that consciousness of presence, of similar heart space, it just gets bigger.
Yes.
It just gets bigger. It feeds the energy.
Yes, if you come together with a common intention, that intention shows up. If you come in together, like I do in the meditations in the morning, we come together to be in presence. Presence shows up much bigger and much brighter than it would show up if I did it by myself. And also, I wouldn't be doing it by myself every day if I wasn't accountable to show up for other people. Because sometimes what we need is the container, like a coaching or a mentoring appointment is more important than the mentor. It is that you're giving an hour of space with that intention, which allows you to move mountains in that hour, that otherwise that hour you may have been on Facebook or taking a walk or running on the rat race treadmill, but you wouldn't have intentionally spent it on creating. So it's often what we provide in a group session or in a private session, or you and a friend getting together, is a space of intention in which we actually do something that we otherwise wouldn't have done.
One last thing that I would say about that is also that these kind of relationships really cultivate and allow us an opportunity to heal our trust. Because I find that a lot of things, maybe why people want to maintain an insular kind of path, is that maybe they're not fully trusting, right? I mean, and we all have evidence to support not to trust. So that I'm not denying that, but there's a sort of opportunity to really integrate and bring into wholeness or healing this element of trust. And trust is not just about trusting other people. It's really about trusting ourselves, right? Trusting that life really is happening for us. I mean, if we drop into trust that that is the truth, that creates such a sweetness in life. Like trusting, if we can experience everything from that place of trust, it changes everything. Even if parts of us get hurt in that process, even if hurt, right? Even if parts of us get a little bruised, man, that is worth being curious about. To live in trust in a women's circle, to live in trust with a mentor, to live in trust with a friend, to really open up and allow ourselves to be real. That's real.
Yes. To allow yourself to be authentic and vulnerable with somebody who will not judge you is extremely powerful experience. Very, very transformative, very liberating. It gives you the courage to become truly and authentically yourself fully in the world, because you get to try it out somewhere and see that the world doesn't fall apart, and in fact things become much more beautiful when you are truly yourself without apology, just your crazy quirky self.
It would not be an interesting world if we weren't all of that.
Yes.
Well, anything else that you want to add, Marieken?
No, just, I wish for everyone to find this kind of, sweet spot of living where you can take in the information from the ego mind and see it in its right place, where you can be in connection with your naked soul or your heart space, and follow what it's prompting you to to grow, to trust its impulse, to trust the excitement that it shows you, and to allow yourself to feel it, and to just again, it's the bottom line for me is always comes back to presence. Let it all in. Because if you stay open to all of it, you will always see that 99, if not more, percent of it is good. And that little 1% is just there for contrast. Mm-hmm. So honor it, and don't move away from it, but recognize it, see through it, and then notice all the beautiful things that are there. I mean, and that keeps you in a overall holistically positive state of mind, which is the creating miracle space.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your beautiful contribution and your wisdom to this conversation. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate our conversations, as I know that many others have as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Asha. I feel the same. So thank you very much.
And that's a wrap for this video. Of course, for any questions, we'll have information available for you to reach out to either of us. So Marieken's, do you want to tell your website just so people have it?
Yeah, it says it at the bottom of the picture. It's superblysensitive.com. And
I love that.
There's many places there where you can send a message to me or get in touch with me.
Okay, beautiful. And then and for me, it's asharamakrishna.com. You see my name there. And thank you for being a part of this experience, this Living in the Now series. And we hope that this information has been great service to you. We really appreciate you being a part of it. We have appreciated your questions, your feedback, your comments, and have an amazing day.
Yes, enjoy. Life is great.
Bye, thank you.